Hey y'all, thanks for stopping by. So, for a lot of Warhammer fans out there, you've been waiting on a 10th edition codex so you can play with your armies. And I'm still waiting on the Orc one. Whether or not I even use it to play in official tournaments, I do want it just for the collection to have it. But also, the lore that you get out of those is pretty cool too. If you've ever opened one, you know about those little blocks of basically it's like a paragraph of a story. Introduces you maybe to a named character, puts you in the setting of the army that you're going to be playing as, or at least the codex that you bought and you're reading through that army. And Elite came out yesterday that's causing a bit of a stir amongst the online Warhammer community, specifically amongst the groups who pride themselves as gatekeepers and the ones who are beholden to the lore and want to keep it rock solid. If you don't know about this page, if you aren't truly familiar with what's going on, I have it here. Let's read it together, shall we? It goes a little bit like this. Custodian Calades Taravalia Kesh stood upon the bridge of a Cobra-class destroyer. Named Vigilant Flame, the warship belonged to the mighty Battlefleet Solar. She lingered in the shadows at the back of the bridge, positioned at a spot where she could observe the actions of every crew member, be they in the instrumentation pits, at the armament shrines, or, in the case of Shipmaster Lethwick, stood Ramrod straight before his command throne. Now, keen observers among you might have heard the two words that are causing the most concern in that story, and that's she. This custodian is implied to be a woman, or at least that's what those pronouns would mean to me. And this has caused some animosity in certain sectors of the Warhammer fandom, because up until this point, we haven't had a named custodian that is a woman. They've all been men. I think that there's some confusion about Astartes and custodians. I get that Astartes are men. There's that famous line, only men will receive my seed from Big E, which, little homoerotic, but I digress. I get what the lore means in that instance. But custodians are not Astartes. Those are very special Freaknik super soldiers that have been trained for an extremely long time. They are the apex of this world. They aren't the same. You can sort of mass produce Space Marines. All you need is, well, someone who can accept the gene seed and a gene seed. You just stick them in them and they grow up real quick. You train them up, you get them out there. You are essentially using child soldiers with Space Marines, but the custodians are the elite. There's no implication that says they can't be men or women, and like, let's be real, at the point we see them in the stories when they're actually fighting, they aren't even human anymore. So you can just kind of, I don't know, cope with that however you want. Some people are having a really tough time with things. These folks who pride themselves on upholding the lore and making sure that bad people don't change it are suddenly calling GW the bad ones for progressing the narrative in a way that they find suitable. This is the same stuff I covered in my gatekeeping video a while back, where I said that GW wants to make a good story. They want to move it in a place that makes sense, and they're not going to sabotage their own company for those ends. Primarily, they're after money. I get that capitalism seems like a dirty word for some of you guys, but we're all beholden to this dollar, and they are a publicly traded company, so they have a bit of shareholder responsibility there. What do you call it? Fiduciary responsibility. They're not going to tank their own company by introducing things. They're going to make it make sense in their lore. So when I see responses like this guy, if you love Warhammer 40k, don't abandon the love for it, but abandon GW. Talking about disregard them equally, stop buying their shit. The setting can be what you want if they don't respect their own property. The tourists can rule over ashes as they want, and the fans can have their frozen in time relic. Isn't that just succinct? It's exactly what these guys have been after this whole time. They want a locked in place, frozen in time artifact to play around with. The past is static. It's immovable. Frankly, it blinds you with nostalgia, but the present is ever moving. It's organic. It's a living creature. And I am so excited to see where GW evolves this beast, where they choose to take their narrative. I'm here for it no matter what. I'm painting my orcs. I want to get new models. I might branch out and do some other armies, but either way, the story is progressing naturally. And characters are being introduced in a normal way. So I don't see any issue with this. And all the people who are really upset about with are, I mean, I don't really want them in my hobby space in the first place. They're usually nasty people who treat others poorly and want you to play only their way. I just want to play how GW says. Most of the people I play with agree. Hopefully you do too. And if you don't, maybe you should examine that. But I can't tell you how to play your board games. You can paint however you want. You can play with your friends however you'd like. But you are being left behind. And maybe you can break out of that cycle soon. But until then, y'all try to have a good day.